Video, I'm going to show you how you can modify the request and responses with Gloo Gateway using the Kubernetes Gateway API, but also how we have extended the native capabilities that are present in the Gateway API to do some more advanced manipulations. So as I said, we are using the Gateway API. You can look at the guide and see how headers can be modified, added, removed, but also how we can change the path or rewrite the host name and things like that. But I'm going to show you that live. So we start with this example here where we want to use this native filter that's called request header modifier to add a new header with the key foo and the value bar. We want to change the value of the user agent so that it becomes custom, and we want to remove the header called to remove. So we show the three different options: adding a new one, modifying an existing one, or removing an existing one. So to do test this, we run this curl request, and you can see here we send that to HTTP bin so that we see what is received by HTTP bin, and we add this header here so that we can see it is removed, and we can see this to remove header is not present when the request is reaching the backend, so that's fine. We have this new foo which has the value bar, and the user agent, instead of being curl, it's custom. So like pretty simple, showing you how you can do that with the Gateway API. Another common manipulation on the request side is when you want to rewrite some information like the path or the host name. So imagine you want to expose, like we do here, your service with a specific domain name, but this is not the domain name or the host name that is expected by the backend. And the backend, to work properly, needs to have the right host name. So you can just use this URL rewrite filter to change the host name before it reached the backend. And the same way, you could say the path that you expose publicly through your API gateway may be different than the one that is expected by the target service. So you can also rewrite the path that way. So if now I run this curl on /public gate, I see that first of all, the host information received by the backend is not the one that the end user used, but the one that has been set in the HTTP route. And also we see that the request was a /get, which is fine, which is what is expected by the backend service. So that's for the request side. Now what about the response? So the same way, you can use another filter that is called response header modifier, and you can again add a new header, modify an existing one, and remove another one. So we do it here by just adding, we use this special call in HTTP bin that allows us to add some response headers, and we add this one called to remove and this other one to modify. And we see the one called to remove is not there, and the to modify has the new value that we indicated here, and we have also this new one that's called foo with the value bar. So it's pretty nice already what you can do with the Gateway API, but let's apply back the original one with no transformation, and we can show you that with Gloo Gateway you can do much more, because the approach I have shown so far is pretty limited, right? The value is static, right? You cannot say I want to get this value from another header, or I cannot really modify a request or a response based on the request or this kind of thing. So I'm going to show you two examples of what you can do with the Gloo Gateway extension. You can do much more than that, but I will just give you like a preview of what you can expect. So the way it works is that we, in that case, use a Gloo Gateway object that's called a root option, and we have something called stage transformation, which allows us to manipulate the request. And you see there is a stage that's called regular, which is like happening after external authentication. You can use another that is called early, which is happening before the external authentication. So it's also very nice that you can manipulate the request before or after authentication, because the authentication may modify the request itself by adding some headers or removing headers and so on. What you can see here is that we are going to look at the user agent um, header. So you see here we have this user agent curl with the version, and we want to extract just curl. So we want just to extract what we call the product name in a user agent. And to do that, we can use an extractor that, based on a regular expression, we say we want to extract everything before the slash. And we want to create a new header called xClient with that value. And you see here we use this target ref to target the entire HTTP route. So in HTTP route you can have multiple rules. Here we have just one, but if you have multiple ones, when you create a route option and you target the HTTP route that way, that means it's going to be applied to all the routes in this HTTP route, all the rules. So if now I run this curl, I can see I have this new X client with the value curl. And that's an example of how you can manipulate the request with regular expression, which is quite powerful. But you could also even, if it's like a JSON body, you could take some data from the JSON body to put in a header. You could do really, really nice things with transformation. Another use case, which is I think even more interesting, is you can take something from the request to add it in the response. So you know when the request comes in, there is this X request ID which is added, and that can also be added into the access logs, right? If you want to keep track of all the requests and you want to get the method and the path and some information about the request, you would probably also store this request ID. But imagine a user has an issue when it tries to access your service. It cannot tell you what was the request ID because it doesn't know about it, right? If I look at the response headers that are returned to the user, there is nothing about this request ID. So that's another case where we can leverage a root option, and we can just say I want to, in that case, manipulate the response so that I create a new header called xRequestID, which is using the request header of the same name. So it's pretty nice, right? You can basically tell the gateway, add a new header, use in the response that correspond to a one in the request. And you can see here I didn't put the target ref option. So right now my root option has no impact, right? It's not doing anything. And that's the second approach that is possible. Instead of using target ref and targeting all the rules of an HTTP route, you can modify your HTTP route and add a filter to a specific rule. So here I have only one rule, but I could have many and just apply this transformation to one of them. And you see there is this filter that's called extension ref, which is part of the Gateway API, that allows vendors like us to add some additional capabilities in their API gateway, but still using the Gateway API. So here I am just indicating I want to apply this root option to this specific rule. And now if I try to run the command again, you see here I have this very useful information xRequestID that is telling the user this is the request ID that we track in the gateway. So if I have an issue with this call, I could go back to the producer of this service and say, hey, I got an issue and the request ID was that. So that could be used for the vendor to determine, or the producer of this service to determine what was the issue and to troubleshoot it. So yeah, that was a brief overview. As I said, you can do much more than that with transformations, but at least I hope it has shown you the power of what you get already in the standard Gateway API and the way we've been able to extend the capabilities with Gloo Gateway.